Hey everyone, this is Matt, owner of Body by Brady and Clean Eats Fort Mill and founder of Get Fit Fort Mill. And I'm with Dr. Reiser today again, and we are going to be discussing heavy metal toxicity, what it is, what you need to look for, some ways you can probably work on it if it is an issue with you. And then we have an event going on where Dr. Reiser will be speaking at Clean Eats on September 12th. That's a Wednesday at 6 p.m. He'll talk to you more about the topics, but they'll be posting a link. And if you register and show up for your show for the talk, you'll get a $10 gift card to Clean Eats Fort Mill. So it'll be a good event for you to check out. We'll go over that again at the end, but let's get started with the topic today. Heavy metal toxicity. Let's talk about what actually that is.
So, I mean, a lot of people hear about it. And it's one of those things, I think, especially with patients that come in, it's in the back of their mind. It's kind of one thing that they, especially people that have gone through years of not feeling good or chronic fatigue and everything else, they go, well, what about heavy metals? And that's pretty much all they know. And they don't even know what heavy metals are, how they're tested or anything like that. The five biggest that most people would want to test for, and at least what the EPA is considering the five most potent ones, would be cadmium, chromium, arsenic, lead, and then mercury, which is mostly everybody's heard about.
Yeah.
So the thing is with these metals is they're naturally occurring. So they're going to be in the earth all over the place. And especially if you live near industrialized areas with manufacturing and plants. And I mean, even in like the old office buildings, like the paint in here would have contained lead and so on and so forth. So drinking water, foods, all these things contain metals. And we need some of these metals. Like chromium actually is very important for blood sugar metabolism, for metabolism as far as fat cells. So we need some of these at a certain level, but people go overboard with this stuff and they don't realize it. And a lot of times it's the missing piece to their health problems. So those would be the five biggest. And I guess sources would be the next thing to cover here. As far as like mercury, for sure, we're looking at fish. You have like shark and swordfish are really bad ones. I would say don't eat those a lot. If you're looking at arsenic, well, actually mercury again, the mercury, the fillings in your teeth. A lot of people still have the old ones that can cause cholesterol problems, so on and so forth. Arsenic, you can find a lot of different places: cigarette smoke, drinking water. You can get it from brown rice. Lead is in bone broths. So if you're drinking and doing the bone broth stuff, a lot of people are getting in trouble with that because some of these diets say when you wake up in the morning, drink bone broth, or if you have an immune system condition or autoimmune condition, do bone broth. These people now have lead issues. The e-cigs nowadays, cadmium, that is in a lot of those. So people are thinking they're healthy now because they're getting away from the arsenic and cigarettes. And now they have cadmium poisoning in the e-cigs. So it goes on and on.
So just don't smoke.
Yeah, number one, don't smoke to avoid any kind of issues. But yeah, it's just one of those things that most people don't think about.
So this is, you know how they have in the stores, I don't even know if they still do, but people, I don't even know if they, like the sticky things that you stick on your foot.
Yeah.
When it would come out. Is that really?
I don't know enough about that to comment. I don't know. I mean, the funny thing is with that kind of stuff, I've seen it. The brown and the green and everything else. I don't know. I mean, there are ways to get rid of it. The first thing you need to do is get tested. So the symptomology of this stuff would be almost like any other disease, where it's chronic fatigue, you have obesity, you have brain fog, energy problems at different times of the day, hair falling out. I mean, it mimics thyroid, it mimics adrenals, it mimics all this kind of stuff. So we will check it if I think it's a good possibility. Like for instance, a patient came in probably a couple months ago and had all these issues. She's been, she's like, oh, I know I have Hashimoto's and I know I have this. And so I was like, okay, there's got to be a missing link here. And we said, okay, let's go back further. And that's what functional medicine does. It's be detective work here. And she grew up in West Virginia in the mountains and right next to an industrial plant, like right next to it. So all of the water runoff would go through behind her house and everything else. And then, of course, they're using water come up through that. So we tested her through what's called the mercury test, and then we also did the heavy metal test from a company called Quicksilver. Pretty much the leaders in heavy metal testing. And what they'll do is they'll do a hair sample, they'll do a urine sample, and a blood sample. And there's all different kinds you're looking for. So when somebody if you go to a doctor and you only get a blood test or you only get a urine, you're only looking at one type of molecule. Mercury is a big one, where you can have a methyl mercury and you can have the inorganic mercury, and it will change. So even if you have your inorganic looking good in your urine, your hair can show that you have a major problem. But anyways, long story short, she had her arsenic levels were about 50 times what they should have been. And she had no clue, no idea. And she was living like this for 20 years, and that's what was causing all her problems. And it was as simple as literally detoxifying the heavy metal out of her body for her to feel better. If you guys get on YouTube, this is just recent. I think as of this week, Tony Robbins was on, and he talked about his mercury issue. He had high levels of mercury poisoning. And you would think that guy's probably relatively healthy. Well, he had no idea, and he worked with this company that we work with called Quicksilver, and they detoxified his system. So it's important because most people don't think it's a problem, and it really is a problem, especially because we're so industrialized now, and a lot of neighborhoods are right next to these plants, and we were using things that we did not realize had heavy metals in them.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I would say as far as trying to recognize if you have an old house and that kind of stuff, try to figure out if you have any heavy metal issues in there. I mean, it can be in anything. So, but as far as getting rid of this stuff, that's where it kind of gets tricky. And I know there's a lot of stuff online that tries to tell you how to detox, and there's a way to go about it. So once you get tested and once we test you, then we have to figure out what's the best route of action. And most people have heard of chelation therapy. I think most people have, or using charcoal and clay. So charcoal and clay will work good, and the charcoal capsules, they bind to heavy metals and get it out of the system. Chelators you shouldn't do that right off the bat. Okay, so what chelators do, and there's one called EDTA. Don't ask me to even, I think it's ethylene dimetrazine or something like that. Anyways, EDTA. So its whole purpose to get in the body is it will bind to mercury and lead and all these things and get it out of the system. The problem with that is you need other heavy metals in your body to work, like copper, zinc, and all these things. So zinc is one where if you use a chelator, it will just totally strip your body of zinc. Zinc is important in almost every single body system, and you'll start to feel actually worse. So the last thing you do is chelate. The first thing you do, and you can take just small steps, is, and we've said this in another detox thing, glutathione. Okay, you can get even a supplement called NFR2, and that will start the process. You don't even have to take glutathione to get the detox going, but glutathione will actually bind to elements, bind to these heavy metals like mercury. You'll urinate them out. One easy, simple one you can do is chlorella. It's actually a little green tablet or capsule, and it's an organism, microorganism, and you'll take about 1 to 4 grams a day, depending on how you feel, and that actually will strip your body of heavy metals, and you'll detoxify it out. So those two things you can do, and support the liver and everything else, because the thing that these heavy metals do in your body is they go in and they, damage DNA. That's the one thing. So at low doses, they're considered toxins. At high doses, they're considered carcinogens, and that's cancer causing. So they start to manipulate your DNA, and then you start to replicate these things. Then you're replicating a cancer cell. Okay, so that's the biggest problem with this. So some people will actually take glutathione all day just because it's good for you. But the last thing then you would do after that in the process is use those things to detox. Support yourself with zinc, maybe even use like an R-lipoic acid. That's one thing that will detox. And then once you feel good and you have your zinc levels up, then do a chelation, and then you should be rid of the toxins. Obviously, when you're using a chelator, only use it with a healthcare professional, because it can go wrong very quickly.
Don't self-medicate.
Don't self-medicate, exactly. So
I know it depends on each person. How long does it usually take someone to detox the heavy metals out of their body?
It depends on the heavy metal. Like arsenic has a pretty short half-life. So it was relatively quick. I mean, it was only a few weeks or a month. Mercury is a tough one. It stays in the body. It goes right after the liver and the kidneys first. And then what it'll do is it's a neurotoxin. So it'll go after the brain. That's why now, if you're reading a lot of different things with Alzheimer's, most of those people that have it have a mercury issue. And if you start to get rid of the mercury, the symptomology starts to get better. So that one takes a long time, though, because it will stay in your body, and you can literally accumulate mercury your entire life. Whereas if you're doing arsenic, you'll accumulate it, but then as the years go on, your body will actually get rid of it on its own a little bit. But mercury would be the one that you'd want to watch out the most.
So if you don't detox, it keeps building up in your body?
Keeps building up. Yeah,
Okay.
you're literally a walking piece of mercury. So, and that's why when you have those fillings,
Is tuna still bad? Tuna fish?
Tuna's on like if there was a cutoff, I think it's like swordfish, what did I just say? The swordfish, shark, and then you'll do like halibut and a couple different things. And then there's a line that the EPA has drawn, and then tuna is like next up. So they still don't consider it a problem just yet, but it's close. So I wouldn't eat it a lot all the time, but I don't think it's a problem to do it a couple times a week. And yeah, I don't think it will really make that much of a difference.
It doesn't matter whether it's like ahi tuna or if it's like canned tuna, or is it just tuna is tuna?
I think tuna is tuna. I think I want to say the more cold water the fish, the better off it will be for you as far as heavy metal issues. But yeah, I mean, it's still where the EPA says it's okay, so I wouldn't really worry too much about it. Yeah, I mean, it's right underneath the line there. But if you're doing swordfish a lot, I know marlin is one. I don't know how many people eat marlin, but it's one up there. So, but yeah, those two you definitely want to just do sparingly for sure.
Okay.
But if the biggest thing is, and you'll look, if you Google like mercury-free dentists, you'll find that they will advertise that because it's a huge thing. And like if people have cholesterol problems, just look in your mouth, and I'll look in patients' mouths, and you'll see the fillings in there, and just say, hey, take those out and see what happens to your cholesterol, because that mercury in there will actually hurt the liver. The liver has to do its job with cholesterol, and you pop those things out, and it's actually fine.
They still do mercury filling?
I don't think anymore. I hope not. I don't think they do, but yeah, it's a big thing. I mean, some of those, they literally specialize in removing them and then replacing them for you.
So if you have metal in your mouth, get it taken out.
There you go.
So we got a lot of good information today. I have your website in the detail section of the comment section here, so be sure to check that out if you're having any issues and you're looking at setting up a time to come in and see Dr. Reiser. Let's go ahead and tell people about what they can expect you to talk about on September 12th. And we'll be posting the link to Eventbrite and this group and on Clean Eats and on his page. Talk to them a little bit more what they can expect with that talk.
Yeah. So the talk, I do kind of a general talk. It's kind of about weight loss, but it's more about health and wellness. And what it will be entitled is Physiological Barriers to Weight Loss. And really, it's just going to be me touching on adrenals, your GI tract, your thyroid, your liver, and all these things that the big, Weight Watchers, Herbalife, and all of them, they miss because it's such a generic diet. So if you're one of those people, when there's, a lot of people out there that said, well, I was on Weight Watchers for a while and I dropped some weight and then it just stopped. Well, there's other problems happening that diet's not addressing. You have to have an individualized diet or individualized case management to push you past that. So that's what I'll be addressing, kind of showing you how you can test for it, what to look out for. Then obviously there will be an opportunity for those that show up to meet with me for their specific situation and kind of talk about where have they gone with their weight loss and why is it not moving any forward. And usually you can pinpoint these things and they're pretty easy to fix. I mean, to be honest, but those big guys, a lot of them do diuretics and things, and you're kind of cheaping when you do that. So we just got to figure out, and Matt, you do it all day. So you got to go individual care with people and figure out what exactly they need exercise and what they need diet. So we'll be addressing just physiological components, not really going to give any diet advice per se. But just kind of shed some light on why some things don't work. So that's what we'll be doing the 12th. Also, too, in about a week, I'll be on the Francine Marie show on the radio with Beasley. Look out for that. We'll be talking about diabetes. So a lot of good information coming up if you want to check in. Yeah, so make sure you like their business page so you can stay up to date on all their upcoming events. They're also on Instagram. If you have any questions, be sure to comment below. I think our next talk we kind of talked about today, we'll talk a little bit more of supplementation and stuff like that. That's a big one that a lot of people have questions about. So be on the lookout for that date and be on the lookout for the Eventbrite for the event on the 12th. Talk to everyone soon.